You guys all ready?
Oh, no, not yet.
The special session of the Board of Education for March 23rd, 2018 is called to order. Welcome to everyone present and to our television viewers. This meeting is being televised live and will be replayed throughout the next 2 weeks. Please check the board website for replay times. This meeting is also being streamed live on our PPS TV services website. So this afternoon, we have a special session, or special meeting of the board to consider resolution 5621. I'd like a motion to put this on the table.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Esparza-Brown and seconded by Director Anthony. Ms. Houston, is there any comment, public comment? Okay. So before we have a board discussion, I'm just going to provide some historical context for this contract amendment. And first I want to say that we're missing two board members who are out of town, I believe, and the meeting was called with short notice. But given that spring break is right around the corner, we wanted to take action before the start of spring break, and many people in the school community are gone. So to provide some historical background, the previous board, the 2016-17 board, had asked the district leadership to review the Whitehurst matter. The review didn't happen. In the summer and fall of 2017, a new board and new superintendent were in place, and new information about Mitch Whitehurst, who is a district employee, was reported. The new board identified and interviewed a potential team of experienced legal team to undertake an independent investigation of the Whitehurst matter. On September 19th, the board met in a special meeting to commission the independent investigation. At the time, the scope was comprehensive. We not only wanted to understand what happened over a lengthy period of time and the district's response or lack of it, but we also wanted asked for recommendations for how we could better protect our students, what policies, practices, trainings, and procedures needed to be assessed, changed, or revised. So we had at the time, a pretty extensive set of scoping questions for the investigation that we sent to the investigation team. I'm going to ask Director Esparza-Brown to review those, and then we'll also talk about a subsequent referral we made.
Okay, so those are, what notice of possible concerns about Mr. Whitehurst did the district receive? Who received those notices? From whom did they receive them, and when did they receive them? What response did the district make to each notice it received, and what was the timeline for that response? Was each of those responses adequate, and if not, why not? What policies, directives, and procedures were in place at that time that would have been applicable to the complaints or concerns that were raised? Were there system failures and or employee performance failures? And if so, what were those failures? Were there performance failures by external agents or representative of Portland Public Schools? Did any PPS employee or employees fail to comply with mandatory reporting requirements or violate any policies, laws, or ethics rules? If so, who and when? Were there any consequences for those failures? Did any of those failures have licensure implications? Is there evidence that any person or group of people protected Mr. Whitehurst? Who initiated and approved Mr. Whitehurst's transfers? Is there any indication that district personnel used transfers as a way to avoid taking disciplinary action? Was there any follow-up by the administration following statement of Rory Thompson matter as directed by the board? And if not, why not? What complaint and investigation procedures should the district adopt to ensure that complaints regarding personnel and agents working on behalf of PPS are received and acted upon promptly and appropriately? Did the district's record keeping or other procedures allow for consideration of all prior complaints related to employee misconduct involving students such that the district had identified any patterns of related issues? If not, what should be done to change that? Are there provisions in the union contract that impact the district's ability to adequately address complaints? Do PPS employees receive adequate training in recognizing possible predatory behavior and how to respond appropriately? Are there other complaints about sexual misconduct by other employees or agents of the district that have not been adequately addressed?
Thank you, Director Esparza-Brown. I think just listening to that list again, it was formulated based on what we knew at the time. And we also discussed at the time that the approved contract might need to be adjusted. There was a question about if in the course of their investigation, if something else came up or some serious allegation was made, whether we wanted them to pursue it or put it aside. And I think we told them that we wanted them, if it was something serious and credible, that we would want them to sort of chase it down and see if it warranted further review. We did say that we wanted them to, if they thought it wasn't credible or serious, not to pursue it, but not to ignore potential new things that got raised during the investigation. One thing that was on that list, if I can just put it again, was that we said, are there other complaints about sexual misconduct by other employees or agents of the district that have not been adequately addressed? So in February, on February 2nd, we, board leadership, Director Esparza-Brown and Director Moore and myself sent a referral to the investigative team, and I'm just going to read a portion of it. As you are overseeing the Whitehurst investigation and analysis of Portland Public Schools practices concerning handling of allegations of employee sexual misconduct, we'd like the investigation to be informed by the district's response to allegations raised about inappropriate conduct of former PPS teacher Norm Scott, including the agreements entered into between the district and Scott and the employment references provided by PPS to other districts. Upon review of the district's practices and actions, we have concerns with how Scott's employment termination was handled. We instruct the PPS interim general counsel to provide all relevant documents and information to you in the district's possession. So that conversation did happen between the interim general counsel, and we've provided documents to them as well. So we provided an additional referral as part of the original investigation. So let's skip one thing, so at the December 19th board meeting, we did approve a contract extension based on the work that they'd done to date, and then we had the February 2nd referral as well. So the team has continued their interviews and the leads that have come in from the community. We do expect the report they're closing in on sort of, I think, the last laps. But in course of finishing the investigation, they have bumped up against the last contract extension that we provided them. So we're here today to consider a contract extension amendment. And I'm going to ask our interim general counsel to describe what the amendment is and also provide their rationale, or what they've conveyed as their rationale for the need for a further extension.
Happy to do that. The proposed amendment is for an additional $50,000 on the contract and a flat fee for full completion of the process, which is completion of the interviews, the drafting and delivery of the report, consultation with the board, and all of the sundry follow-up pieces that may happen as those investigations are wrapped up. I think there's still quite a bit of work left. They've also reported that in the fairly broad scope of work that was assigned to them, the number of interviews, the number of documents, the number of locations of documents, the age and different media in which the documents are in. I think at every turn this has been more complex than was anticipated, both in terms of volume and, in some cases, difficulty. Certainly, there's also, I think, the public records overlay. There have been numerous public records requests, and if documents have been unearthed, there has been additional work in coordinating the processing of those new documents that other witnesses may have had that the district didn't have, but now the district has. So there's additional work on that front. Certainly the Norm Scott work was incremental but not insignificant. That was the referral the board made, which I think was the right thing to do, and had come up also somewhat organically in their process, but that was additional work that was not originally contemplated or contemplated at the first amendment. So I think that gives you a flavor of the work. It will be, my understanding is, it's anticipated to be a lengthy and as you would expect for this investigation and what you've asked them to do, a very comprehensive report. My impression is it has been approached at all times with much seriousness and professionalism. But it's been a big job.
Any questions from board members?
So I just want to clarify, this is a substantial amount of money.
It is indeed.
And so do we have assurances that with this additional $50,000 amendment, we will get all of the work completed and delivered to us on time? And
Those are the terms under which the amendment is being entered into.
okay.
Any other questions? Any comments?
I guess I just for the record, when we get the report, we'll get a chance to look at it, and it will become public information. And I think it's important to remind everybody that this was a really egregious episode of abuse of students, allegedly, that represented a significant lapse of safety measures within PPS and warranted this kind of really thorough and comprehensive investigation. So it's a lot of money, but we need to make sure that this kind of thing never, ever happens again. And hopefully with this report, we're going to get recommendations that will allow us to reform or create systems that are going to protect student safety.
So, Director Moore, that's an excellent point, because I think it would be simplistic to look at this as we're looking at what happened with this one individual. I think the real value, so of course we're interested in what happened and why and who. I think the real value of this is what needs to be changed in PPS so that this doesn't happen again, and that our fundamental job, the superintendent, the district staff, the board, is to make sure that every parent who sends their child to school every day knows that they'll be safe and protected. So really, if we think about it, like, that's a lot of money to spend for an investigation on one person. Well, it's now more than that, but really, it's to inform us going forward in the future, not just what happened with one person.
Those mandatory training on mandatory reporting for educational professionals with licenses, you have to review that training yearly, and I think making sure that all our employees understand that we take that seriously, that there are no reasons not to follow the process. So again, that we ensure that nothing like this happens again. There's no room for error here.
Anything else? closing thoughts, Ms. Large or Superintendent Guerrero? Okay, the board will now vote on Resolution 5621. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes. Yes. All opposed, please indicate by saying no. Are there any abstentions? Resolution 5621 is approved by a 5-0 vote. We'll be adjourning to the next regular meeting of the board, which will be held on April 10th. The meeting is adjourned.